All good. Brilliant. Too easy. We'll jump right into it. Welcome to the After Party podcast. My name is Connor Maroney, and today I'm joined by a very special guest, Brumbies and Wallabies legend, Scott Sio. How you going today, mate?
Title for lover, bro. Thanks for having me on. All good.
Brilliant, bro. So you're just saying you're in Sydney now, yeah?
Yeah, man. Just on break now. Didn't head over on the tour. So I'm on break now before I head back down to preseason at Brumbies later in the year, November.
Yeah, brilliant, bro. And I saw that you have been spending a fair bit of time with the Wallabies, regardless anyway. How's the whole camp sort of been feeling? It looks like sort of from those original first All Blacks games, like everyone was a little bit down and out, but then in came the reinforcements with Quaid and a few other boys all joining, and it really showed for those next couple of games. Can you really feel the energy there at the moment now, kind of getting some of those other boys back and just sort of the vibes in general in the squad?
Yeah, man, it was always really cool vibes. Obviously, I was part of the French series early and went away with a hamstring injury. But when I rejoined the squad, it was the same sort of thing. We were obviously building, to beat a world-class side like the All Blacks. You've got to be on for the full 80. And I guess, for us, it was sort of 3 games of probably 60 minutes of really good rugby and just 20 minutes of lapses here and there. So it was really cool for us as a group to put together, 4 wins back to back. First time in a long time the group's done that and build some good momentum heading into the tour. And I have no doubt that the boys will build on that and continue on with it overseas.
Yeah, bro. I think that seems like, I guess the All Blacks are really the last ones to tick over, and like it does seem as though everyone is sort of having that same conversation of those time lapses, because it's just been seen, especially over the last 2-3 years with all New Zealand teams and the All Blacks and even just their super teams. They are playing that full 80 minutes and they are starting to win those games, that last 20 and all that. Do you reckon that comes down to just like a fitness thing, or is it more of a mindset? Like are some of the boys starting to get into that rigmarole of that full 80 again?
Yeah, I don't think it's a fitness thing. That level you picked because you're fit, you're strong and you're a really good rugby player, and I think it probably comes down to probably 2 things, one being combinations within the game plan, and then 2, probably just moments in the game, winning big moments in the game there, what I mean, being able to capitalize. And I guess that was the real difference, is when they sniffed an opportunity, they really made the most of it and always came away with points or put pressure on us, what I mean, forced our hand. And that's how the cookie crumbled for us, unfortunately. So, we've got to take our learnings from that and continue to build. And I feel like that's what the boys have done in those last 4 games. And, there's a lot of promising and exciting rugby to be played later in the year.
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, I guess we should take it back to the beginning, eh? So, mate, were all throughout your high school Sydney footy player there at Trinity, was that right?
Yeah, Trinity Grammar. Yeah, I was there from 06 to 09, graduating class of 09. So you can tell my age now.
Bro, I saw you were also vice school captain as well.
Yeah, I was.
So you're Mr. Popular at the time.
Yeah, had to be well behaved, Dad ran a very strict household. So no, it was cool. It was cool. I mean, very thankful and grateful for my time at Trinity and for them giving me an opportunity to go there. It helped that it was it wasn't too far away from home. I grew up in Lidcombe.
Yeah.
My family's still here, so being at Summer Hill was really easy for me. A few buses, a few trains there as it was growing up back then. But played there. I grew up playing at West Juniors as well, which is where I got my opportunity to go to Trinity through from when I was 6, straight through. So yeah, man, very blessed when I was young, and afforded a lot of awesome opportunities that have helped me get to where I am today.
Oath, man. I'm sort of trying to think, because like I graduated a few years after, but I was sort of around like and watched it, like especially in Queensland rugby at the time. 2009 was like popping off. There was just absolute killers everywhere. You had your Liam Gills, who else? Chris Ortia. All these guys just all bouncing around, like going off. Curtis Browning, like just absolutely killing it. I guess it would have been the same in New South Wales at the time. Do you remember like any of those guys you would come through and be versing around schoolboy footy that are now also pros as well that were killing it back then?
Yeah, well, Hoops, Michael Hooper.
Oh, Hoops is
He's
your
my
year.
age. So yeah, I was a back row back in my younger, faster days. So we had a lot of good battles back at state champs, Manly versus West Harbour, and you always kind of knew he was going to be something pretty special coming through the ranks there. And in there, we had guys like Tom Kingston as well. I played against him in CAS and throughout the age groups there. He played for the Waratahs and Sevens for a while, and I guess guys just went their own sort of ways. Obviously, Liam Gill, Curtis Browning, Christopher Saltier, Kimami Sitati was over in France. I mean, that Queensland team was littered with guys, Matty Lucas. Yeah. So
Matty
you always
Lucas.
knew they were going to kick on, which was pretty cool. So it's always really cool, I guess, to look back and see where they've gone on their rugby journeys and how far they've come and where they are in life. It's pretty surreal when you think back.
Sure, man. Especially like coming down, playing for like the Wallabies and stuff together. It's pretty hectic when you like look back at it. Like I guess what it was like 10 or 11 years ago or whatever. You're all buggered around playing schoolboy footy together as well. It's crazy that that's all progressed this way, man. And one thing I was going to bring up, I just saw Chris Ortier. He just signed to the new Pacifica team that's going to be in the Super Rugby next year. Your dad played for Samoa as well and made an appearance in the 1991 World Cup. How was that growing up with the whole rugby family? Like I was very similar. Was that very much ingrained down your guys' throats?
Did you mean Christian?
No, as in I saw no. I saw Christian signed recently, but like I was saying that your dad also played for Samoa at the time. Back in the day, I was saying like growing up, was he always like jamming rugby down your guys' throats?
Oh, not necessarily. Obviously, he subtly pushed us towards rugby as we were growing up. He said, "Oh, it'd be a good idea to do this," but no, he encouraged us. We played league as well. Growing up, so I did the Saturday rugby union, Sunday rugby league. Mum wasn't a huge fan of league on Sundays. She's a woman of faith, so
bit of a different crowd.
Took a bit of convincing to ask her to let us play in the mornings and then go to church afterwards. So, but we got across the line there. But it was cool. I enjoyed that. Being able to mix it. And there's a lot of guys that are playing in the NRL now that I had the pleasure of growing up and playing with and mixing it with as well there too. So I guess when you're growing up as a kid, you always want to sort of emulate, what your dad did and playing for Samoa, that was the goal growing up. And then obviously the more I watched the Wallabies, my love grew for them because it's just the country I grew up in. The likes of George Smith and Chotai Kefu, because I was a back rower. So yeah, and then eventually, the switch came when I was coming through the age groups and, the goal to pursue rugby as a career and hopefully represent your country is something that's sort of fostered throughout my teen years, probably.
Great. This episode of the After Party podcast was brought to you by the Lad Collective. So Scotty, mate, we're sponsored by a good group of friends here in Brizzy. I've grown up with them my whole life. They're two brothers. And basically what they've tried to do is they've tried to make sheets good for blokes again, get them better in the bedroom. I don't know what your sheet situation like is at home, but mate, what they've got for you is they've on each corner, they've got bottom left, bottom right, top left, top right tags. So when you shoot the sheets in, you whack them in.
Seen that.
They breathe.
Wrongers is using.
Wrongers has used them. Yeah, all the boys are. We'll get you hooked up with a pair as well, man. We'll get them sent out through to you there. Yeah, but mate, they make summer very easy as a big boy like yourself. Summer's coming and you don't want those sweaty nights. So you want that bamboo, 60% bamboo, 40% cotton, breathing nice and easy. What's your sheet situation like at home, mate? Is the misso taking care of everything or back at home with the parents? Are they looking after it all?
No misso. Still single. Down in Canberra, I've got my my tenant Falau Whangai. He does all the housework down there. Shout out to Lauskis on Instagram. That'd be unreal, man. That would make it way easier for us down there. We definitely don't have that bamboo there, 60% bamboo.
Yeah, bro. That's what you need, man. You need
Yeah.
that shit for the summer. That's it. Well, bro, well, they'll link you all up and they'll get your sheet together, as they say, mate. So if anybody wants to check out or get yourself a pair of sheets, just jump on theladcollective.com.au or check out their Instagram at the Lad Collective. Sure, man. And it's cool that you and your dad have both shared the same pathway, at least in playing like international footy and stuff. Does he ever talk to you about like sort of the differences of what it's? I could imagine like in the 90s and 80s, like Samoa rugby would have been like very different than what it looks like now. It probably would have been a lot more rural and definitely not professional at the time either. Does he ever talk about like what it was like to play back then for Samoa?
Yeah, man. Obviously pretty tough times, I think, just growing up back then, in the
Yeah.
70s and the 80s. I can't imagine, obviously the game wasn't professional back then as well. So to sort of play and provide for your family at the same time, I guess no different to what a lot of boys are doing throughout clubland there as
Definitely.
well, applying their trade and they're making a living for themselves. But I guess, there was a sense of pride, I guess, representing your country, back then as well. He always reminds me that I'm probably too soft to have played back in his era.
Yeah,
so,
bro. They've always got the most cooked stories of shit that went down on the field.
If I ever played against him, he probably would have ran me over and cut me in half. And, the usual business.
What position was he again?
It was a prop as well.
Prop as well, yeah. He was a big boy at the time.
Help me out there. So yeah, bigger legs than me too.
Oh, really? Still floating around now. Good. Well, bro, yeah, we'll go. I sort of worded that wrong, but that's how I was going to tie that back to Christian signing up with that Pacifica team there. I mean, a few of the boys are also sort of joining. Like, how much do you think that helps for kind of bringing these guys and kind of letting them also represent their own culture rather than the Australian teams or New Zealand teams and whatnot as well? Do you think it is a really good introduction as well into the comp?
Yeah, I think it's only going to benefit World Rugby in the long run. We know that for World Rugby to keep being as promising as it is to the viewers, we need the Pacific Island nations playing great rugby at that top level, and this I guess affords them the opportunity with the Fiji draw there as well. So, and I think the Moana Pacifica are very lucky to be adding a guy of Christian stature to the group who'll bring a lot of good leadership to a new team who's probably going to be thrown in the deep end, joining the comp. So I'm just looking forward to what he's going to be able to achieve over there. Obviously, it's going to be a bit different lining up against him.
I can imagine.
The beauty of rugby, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. That's it, bro, for sure. And do you reckon that'd be ever something you would look towards to, or you're pretty happy where you are?
Oh, you never know. I mean, you've always got to keep your options open at the end of the day, and that's the beauty of rugby. We're able to. It's a global game, and there's opportunities to live different lifestyles, play different rugby, play against world-class players all over the world. So it'd be weird playing against the Brumbies if I ever did do something like that. But I mean, life's about challenging yourself. So, you'd never rule it out.
I could imagine. And the Brumbies as well, they've served you so well, and you've done the same to them. You've been with them for so long now. You really couldn't have asked for a better organization to be a part of, hey, because I mean, you've been with them for close to a decade now, if not over. Would talk us through that sort of signing up with the Brumbies, what you were expecting, kind of moving out of home and entering this organization.
Yeah, obviously. So at the time I was 19. I was in the Waratahs Academy and doing pretty well there. I thought at the time, and unfortunately there wasn't. They were pretty set with their squad at the time, especially in the front row. They had number of great props coming up through and established guys there. So, unfortunately there wasn't an opportunity for me there, but Jake White was coming into the fold at the Brumbies in 2012 and gave me an opportunity. There were a lot of guys that I played 20s with that were heading down there at the time too. Saliva, Tavita Kurandrani, Nick White, Ian Pryor, Robbie Coleman. So, it's pretty cool to link up with those guys again there as well and apply my trade. And yeah, I guess 2 just stuck at it. Had a lot of good support from family and friends who just steered me in the right direction, and the club gave me the opportunity to sort of keep applying that work ethic and that trade. And 10 years down the line, I am where I am today, and I'll always be grateful to the Brumbies for the opportunity they gave me. And I just hope, when we look back, the club has has been happy with everything that I've been able to give them.
Man, for sure. I definitely agree. And it's pretty much one of the only clubs, if you really think about it, like throughout the last 20 years, it's only really been progressing. Like a lot of clubs have had their ups and downs and whatnot, but the Brumbies have really like stayed to that good standard the whole way through. Can you attribute anything to that really? Do you find the coaches, because like I spoke to Banksy recently, good mate there, good to see him running around with the boys. He was explaining to me that like just the coaching systems at the moment are just like world class and some of the best coaches he's ever had. Do you think that comes into a big play with you boys?
Oh, 100%, 100%. I think being able to build that working relationship with coaches is super important from an individual level. But having coaches that are approachable but are very staunch in the way they believe the game should be played in their style of rugby, and then also having the ability to adapt and adjust. It's a tough sort of trait, right? We're living in a very sort of different landscape at the moment where you need to have that ability, but be very firm in your beliefs in how you think the team can move forward. And over the years, no matter what coaches we've had, there's always been that sort of similar trait. But I guess we're lucky in a sense that we're just kind of like a big country city. We have the opportunity to get a lot closer, a lot quicker compared to the bigger cities there as well. We're able to do spontaneous team meets, and we all live pretty much right next to each other there as well. So, and I think the biggest thing is, we put a lot of faith in people. Slips, who's one of my good mates at the time, he had sort of throw all his eggs in one basket and come down and reinvigorate his career, and look where he's gone to, and it's been great to see a guy like Aiden Tor as well, dealt with a lot of hamstring injuries at the time at the Reds, was probably going to go overseas for a bit and came back, and it was awesome to play alongside him. We just signed Chris Fairway-Saltia as well, and I'm really excited to see what he can, bring to the table. I remember how damaging he was when he first on the scene. So
I saw that last week. That's gonna be electric once he gets in the mix.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it, and I guess got the opportunity to do preseason with him. We just obviously signed Jesse Mogg back, and it's probably a testament to the club that people want to come back. Nick White as well there as well. So man, like I don't think we're anything super special to any club, but we have a sort of a group of core players that have been around for a long time, and just sort of help ease players into the way of thinking and how we sort of do things down at the Brumbies. And we don't try to force it upon anyone, but try to help you sort of understand and find your way in the club, and add your own sort of individual flavor to it.
Yeah, definitely. I guess that's so true as well. Hey, the big country town sort of thing. It just eliminates all distraction. Hey, probably be the best place if you got a big party boy footy player to send him to the ACT.
Yeah.
So, I think there's a lot of credit to it. I mean, like somebody like Tom Banks, for instance, like, to be fair, his footy just increased immensely once he was down there, and that was all he had to focus on, rather than club and working and getting on the piss with the boys and dicking around and whatnot. So I think that definitely holds some value there. Man, so throughout those first couple of years, like at the Brums there, was it a shock at all to what you're originally playing? Because I'd imagine that first sort of like entrance into Super Rugby would have just been so different to anything you'd experienced before.
Yeah, it's obviously a bit different when it's your everyday, isn't it? First year out of school, did a bit of just help my dad's mate out, did a bit of sort of concreting, sort of labouring stuff, and you understand how tough that is. And our family runs money transfer business to Samoa, American Samoa, New Zealand. So I was just sort of doing that in my second year, and then going to club training and that, and you realize the sort of that how tough that daily grind is, but it's kind of a different grind. You know what I mean? You have to be sort of mentally switched on all the time. You're in a sort of high pressure, performance based environment, and you've got to learn pretty quick. When you're in there, but the opportunity you have is that it is your everyday career and job. So, there's no excuses, because you've got all the tools available to you to make yourself the best individual you are, so that, you can contribute to the team in the best way. So it was obviously different. I think, at club rugby, you probably got away with a few things here and there, but at Super Rugby, everyone's at a high level, and, everyone's one of the best in their position, and you're competing every day against each other. And obviously that increases once you get to international level, tenfold again. So it's obviously a bit of a shock early on, but I alluded back to having really good support in family and friends that just kept me grounded, and it reminded me of the opportunity that I have, and it's put me in good stead.
Yeah, man. And was there anyone in particular that it might not have been your first game, but maybe let's say like the first season or so, was there anybody at all that you'd come into contact with in the front row that sort of like made you realize like, oh shit, like this is the standard?
Yeah, well, I got to scrum against some of the best. Every week I was going up against Dan Palmer and Ben Alexander at the time, who were Wallabies incumbents at that time. So, training was where I had to apply my trade and build my craft. Every week, Stephen Moore, obviously, went on to be the Wallabies captain not long after I got to the Brumbies. So, just doing that week in, week out. When I got to obviously international level for the Wallabies, Owen Franks was best tight end in the world at the time. So, playing against him 2 or 3 times a year, you really test yourself and sort of see where you're at. So, man, I mean, I've had the opportunity to play against a lot of world-class front rowers. Dan Cole for England, as well there, WP Nell at Scotland, Franz Mahoba there at South Africa as well. So, so, it's been great. I've been blessed, and that's it. That's the one.
Oh man, so sick. And not long after, I remember reading, and like I watched this whole series as well at the time because it was just bonkers. But when the British and Irish Lions toured in Australia, I think that was in 2012. I think you might have missed a couple of the Wallabies games, but you played for the Brumbies against them, and that was the first win any Australian provincial team had over them in like 40 years or something like that.
No, I think a bit longer.
Man. Talk us through that and the energy of all that, because that would have been like, it's one of the sickest games, like when it always comes through, and like versing these guys, especially at like a club level, like not a club level, but like a lower bit below the international. Did you definitely like notice that there? Because I mean, there's so many different people coming into the mix. That game must have been absolutely crazy.
Yeah, it was absolutely bonkers. I mean, like, so George Smith returned earlier that year against the Waratahs. I mean, what a homecoming. That's the biggest game of the year for the Brumbies. And, we had like 21,000. I think like capacity is 25. And I was just thinking, I totally forgot we were playing the British and Irish Lions later that year. And I was just thinking, we probably won't, this is as packed as the stadium will ever be while I'm here. And then we got there, and it was hailing, I think, before the game.
Oh, fuck, which is perfect European weather.
We thought the game was going to be cancelled, and then we got there, and I think it was like 22 and a half came out in the freezing cold. And probably the biggest difference for me was like the crowd, like, because you had the British and Irish Lions fans there, and they're super passionate, man, and they come out in all their jerseys and they wear all the kit, they're singing all the songs, and it was kind of like my taste of what European rugby was going to be before we head over and play at Twickenham, Murrayfield, Millennium, and that, and I sort of understood, oh man, it's just like, it's a different beast, the atmosphere over there. And so that was like my small taste of it at the time. And obviously, super unreal to get the win at that time as well there, and then get called into the Wallaby squad not long after to sort of be a part of it and train there.
And you
So
had
that
a
was
good
pretty cool.
start to your Wallabies career as well. I think you even got a dub over the ABs at one point in the Rugby Championship. And then rolling on through, I guess it's perfect. We'll roll on to it when you get the call up for the World Cup. The emotions for that must be just huge. It's the be all end all of footy, and especially in England, like it was the sickest matchup for a World Cup there is. I went there as well, and I was off my head for the whole time.
Yeah.
We went on a tour throughout that whole period whilst we were there, so we caught a lot of the games, and just the back to what you're saying, that European crowd and the energy like that was just absolutely nuts. Well, talk us through the challenges of what that World Cup was like. Is it tough kind of traveling with a big team like that, traveling every weekend to each stadium and staying focused for that longer period with injuries and all different matchups each week? Was that a big change to everything you'd experienced before?
Yeah, it was obviously something new. I'd obviously never been to a World Cup, so I didn't really know what to expect. But luckily for me, I had a lot of players that had been there before and done that. Obviously, Matt Giddo had come back as well there to play, and Drew Mitchell, Adam Ashley Cooper, Scotty Keppel was there as well with me, and everyone else that was sort of had been a part of the 2011 World Cup. So, I mean, if there was any country that was going to host the World Cup, I mean, London, England was just the spot to do it, man. They just knew how to do it. And then being sponsored by Heineken, I mean, you know,
Game over.
what more do you want there?
Yeah.
You know, and everyone was traveling over from Europe. It was hectic, eh? It was just non-stop. It was pretty cool, man. Like, you don't sort of realize you're in it while you are at the time. It
Yep.
kind of goes by so fast, and you're sort of so wrapped up in it. Like when I got there, we were in Bath for a bit, and then when we first got to London, I split my eye open.
Yep.
Early in like one of the training sessions, I had that stitched up, and then played Fiji. A couple of boys got injured, so I had to play Uruguay on the Sunday.
I was at that game
and then
actually. That was
that was unreal.
Sean McMahon's debut as well. I think that day is big one.
He went hectic, eh? And I got clipped. I got clipped on the side and got cut open, and it got like infected. So
on your ribs,
massive, like staph. Yeah, I had this massive staph infection heading into the England game, and luckily for me, they cut out the core on the Friday before the game, so like I wasn't in pain anymore. And then I had a head clash in that game with Kane Douglas, so I split my head open. But Dr. Keppel, he tore rib cartilage as well. So my head's just dripping blood at halftime, and I'm waiting for the doc, but he's trying to inject Kep's ribs at the time. And then when he realized like my head was bleeding, we only had like 2-3 minutes before we were doing our speech and heading out. So he got a staple gun out and just stapled my head.
Oh shit! Was this like in the warm up? Did you say?
No, this was during the game.
Oh, during the game, yeah. Oh, at half time, yeah.
So
mate, so you were just getting the shit kicked out of you for 3 weeks.
Yeah, well, the next week, so I got the staples out on the Friday in the Welsh game, split my head open again. And then instead of the staples, I said, nah, just Vaso that up there. And then the week after, dislocated my elbow against Scotland in the quarter, missed the semi, and then did my knee in the final.
Oh, dude.
So I went back with an elbow brace and a knee brace and a few stitches, a few scars on my head and eye. Yeah, it was pretty crazy. Like at the time, I didn't really think much of it. Like,
yeah, I guess you're just ready to play.
Looking back now, you just were like, man, that's crazy. Eh?
Oh, mate, yeah, that's so nuts when you think about it. Eh? Talk about the staples for a sec, because I remember Dad was a prop. He played for the Reds as well, and he sorry, the roommate's coming through.
No, we're good.
Sorry. Yeah, so that was playing for the Reds as well. And when he had a shoulder reconstruction, that's all they did was just all the staples there. How's a staple to the head feel? Oh,
it's way worse than stitches, I'll tell you that much. I wouldn't wish that on anyone. It's right on top of my head, like at the back too. And I was just like, and the problem is like with stitches, you got to keep it in for 7 days.
Yep.
Or something like that. Like, so I had to keep it in until the Friday. So I couldn't get the staples out. So I had to train with it all week as well. And it was just like not ideal. I wouldn't wish that on anyone.
Grim. And mate, that England game as well, like that's got to be up there with one of the crazier games of your career there. That crowd was like, it was 110,000 going absolutely nuts and kicked England out of their own World Cup. Surely that was just like a big highlight for you guys there.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, obviously, besides playing at GIO Stadium, Twickenham's my next favorite. I mean, it was like what I said, like that atmosphere is unreal, and it's like so steep.
Yeah,
it's hard to explain. Like when you're out there, it just feels like the crowd's on top of you there as well, you know, because it's so close to the field. My brother was playing for Stade Francais at the time, so he came over for the game because obviously they were all on break during the World Cup. And he came and watched the game, and he said it was just electric in the crowd. So I can only imagine what it was like as a spectator. It would have been unreal.
Oh man, it was nuts. Because we were over there for our footy tour, so we had like 30 of us, and we're all in Wallabies onesies, going crazy, and we're just in a sea of white. And I can tell you right now, it was the best thing ever, beating them and watching them all walk out and all drinking beers out of our RMs and shit, trying to be as Australian as possible as we're showing them out of the crowd. But the absolute crazy scenes there. Didn't come away with the dub in the end, but made. Moving on from there, I guess the Wallaby squad now, it's looking great, and the front row especially is really starting to get a good roll on. We're seeing some of these younger boys come through, like Taniela Tupou, Alan Alatoa, these guys here. Like, have you noticed like a big increase in the ability of these props from a younger age lately, or do you think it's just sort of like a bit of a freak of nature sort of thing when it comes to someone like Noah?
Yeah, well, you know, I think you'd ask anyone in world rugby, and you know, everyone would say the same thing. You know, Nella is quite a specimen, isn't he? And you know, not many Taniela Tupous, you know, walking around in world rugby at the moment, being able to move and being as strong as he is at that weight. But yeah, I think you know, in Australian rugby, they've always asked a lot of the type 5. You know, the type 5, I believe, is one of the only positions besides kicking that has an effect on every single part of the game.
Yep.
There, you know, so you're part of all of the set piece. You know, you have to chase kicks. You got to, you know, retreat back for kicks to be able to play off the next phase. You're involved in all attacking, defending rucks. You got to be able to run the ball and tackle. So you know, the workload of a front row is immense. You know, and you know, you're just finding, you know, players that are able to shoulder that workload and still be dominant at set piece time. And it's really cool to see how type 5 and I lump us all together because you know, locks are expected to do, you know, a similar sort of workload as front rowers there as well. You know, you've seen the evolution of the type 5 player and you know, how much effect they really do have on all parts of the game. So yeah, it's been really cool to be a part of a lot of their journeys, a small part of their journeys, and how far they've come up. And you know, one day when I move on, it'll be really sort of cool to look back and reflect and see how far they've come as well.
Yeah, definitely, man. Because I think like prop is probably one of the only positions like on the field that it's like wine, you get finer over time. And you think like some of those looks wise as well, mate. But the with those boys, do you think it helps having some of the older boys coming through and kind of teaching them the little tricks of the trade as well? Because there's always some of that old school that you need to get in there. And I saw the likes of like Greg Holmes being added back into the squad and like getting some of those older boys around. Do you think they're kind of like giving them the little tricks and stuff that they have maybe been missing and stuff that they can take into the next part of their career?
Yeah, I think it's super important just for the team as a whole. I think having a good mix of you know, older veteran players there and youth there is super important because obviously youth will bring a lot of that enthusiasm and energy that you remember you had when you first joined, and then obviously will bring a lot of the poise and experience that they probably lack there at the time, and being able to sort of mix that and find a good balance between those both is sorry, just the old man.
No, that's cool.
Yeah. So I think just being able to find the balance in both of that is super important. But yeah, I mean, you teach them a few tricks, but you don't teach them everything.
Yeah, gotta keep a few for yourself. Yeah, I guess that's the thing. Hey, like, does anyone? Oh, I guess no one would really be thinking about it at the time. But I guess you guys are all about to play each other again all next year, so you can't tell them everything. Mate. So yeah, I guess we're going into the next season of footy as well. Yeah, I'm sure you'll link up with the Brums again soon and get back into it all. Um, the goal obviously is to get that dub, the likes of the Reds, and now we're looking at the Tars, who are building up a great team that look like they're just snatching everybody in the off season. Do you think that the Reds are probably just going to be the main threat again for next year in that comp?
Yeah, well, obviously we're mixed in now with
Yeah,
the Kiwis there as well. So, what you really want in the end is for all teams to be, a possibility of winning. I mean,
sure.
that's the real sort of mark of a competition, is that there's majority of the teams vying for the crown. So that's the end goal. I guess as well, you got to sort of realize where you're at first and build on that. And that's sort of what preseason is about, building those combinations so that when the Wallabies rejoin the squad, they're able to fit in straight away, and as they are, being the top of the top and the elite players. So yeah, I think that's what I'm looking forward to most. There's going to be each week we're playing against a top class team and testing ourselves, and your goal is to make that competition the best in the world. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And this might be just like a personal preference sort of thing, but do you think that maybe the comp has, or at least maybe like for the players, has lacked a little bit by not having that New Zealand siphon of teams coming through as well and being mixed and playing in that full comp? Because I'm just thinking like now you do start to see it when you don't verse them all year, or you verse them only for a section of the time. And then afterwards, when you do meet them at the All Blacks level, it can be like not as used to it as you would have been back in the old Super days where you're versing them all throughout the year. Do you think there is a benefit to breaking it up and splitting up and playing in your own comps, or do you think that for the best thing for the sport is just to be mixed in with everybody and versing the best of the best week in, week out?
Yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it? Because
Yeah,
as Aussies, man, you love to see Australian teams against Australian teams week in, week out. From a viewership point of view, I don't think anyone's complaining about us playing against each other. But I mean, that Australia versus New Zealand rivalry stems back a long time. And I think everyone was going to be always welcoming to them rejoining the competition and having an Australia versus New Zealand mix in the Fiji draw and more on the Pacifica. And we've got the the opportunity for a really cool competition ahead. So I think what it might give us is that opportunity to understand what works against New Zealand teams, and what worked for us and what worked for other teams, so that when we come together at Wallabies, we have sort of a better head start on how we attack the All Blacks as a group there. And I think playing against them year in, year out, week in, week out, is only going to benefit Australian rugby.
awesome, bro. Too easy. Well, mate, that's pretty much all I've got for you today. I'll keep it nice and quick. Mate, thank you for coming on, and hopefully you're all ripping and ready to go. No injuries or anything like that, ripping into next season. Mate, how can everyone find you on socials and everything like that?
Yeah, so my Insta is just at Scotty Sio. I'm on Twitter. I don't really use it much, but it's just at Scott Sio there as well. So yeah, bro,
No
I'm
wild,
on Insta a lot.
no wild
So
tweets coming out anytime soon.
nah, not me, man. Insta stories, the more Insta stories.
That's it, bro. Too easy, man. Well, if anybody wants to check out the rest of our stuff as well, go follow us on Instagram at the After Party, and go subscribe and check us out on YouTube at AFATV. We're on Spotify, Apple Music, so go check it all out. Brilliant. Peace, Scotty. I'll keep you on the